page, not just watch it through my Twitter. Thank you very much.
Welcome, everybody, to our live stream. Those who are
the people that are
jumping in just now or watching later, we welcome you, however you are coming about this. So, yeah, welcome. You might notice that we're down a man tonight. Kent Swanson, those who are, however you are coming about this, is struggling a little bit. Yeah, so welcome. You might notice that we're getting some feedback tonight. Kent Swanson, those who are, however you are coming about this, is struggling a little bit. Yeah, so,
oh, there we go.
There we go.
I was working on it. I was getting there.
Still learning.
It started really slow. That was my issue.
That was just Matt trying to get through. I hadn't introed him yet. He's a little selfish. He needed to get in there and get on the podcast.
Pop out chat, stay up. That's my question. We're about to find out.
Got Sam and Corey Gott joining us. Welcome, guys.
I don't think so. Oh, sweet. All right. So my chat. Nah, I don't button up the shirt, Kent. Come on now. Chat rolling.
Do it more. Get it down there. Deep.
Just keep unbuttoning. Here you go, Kent.
Keep unbuttoning.
I can't even see my camera right now because I'm on Twitter, but that was a Kent ask for those wondering.
That was a Kent ask. Kent is in the chat.
That was 100% Kent.
You can harass him from the chat if you like. We're going to make fun of him.
Sure. He's definitely the Ben Roethlisberger of the trio.
That's true.
He established this. He had to let everyone know of his injury. Even though he didn't know if he was going to play yet, he definitely let the world know about his injury.
That's the truth. All right. Let's see here. You know what? I was so concerned with getting this all set up that I need to go grab a beverage.
I know. I had a Long Island already at dinner today, so I was feeling pretty good. But I might need another drink as we keep going.
Ooh, okay. So I'll be right back. Matt, entertain the people.
I got you. All right. Let's see what's happened in my chat. So yeah, I just get left solo to entertain everybody. So how's everyone's? All right. What do we got? Always leave 2 buttons unbuttoned. That's good. Oh, Kent is very soft. He said. All right. Thoughts on a possible move for Darius Slay? If the Chiefs had the capital to make that, I think it would 100% be in the cards. But I'm not sure that even the Lions are willing to get rid of Darius Slay. He's that good. I think they know it. You can only see me because Craig's not there. That's why you can't see him. But yeah, no. If Darius Slay was actually available, like if he was really an option, by all means, pull the trigger, go after him with everything.
Are we talking about going after Darius Slay?
That was a question.
100% on board with that move.
Yeah.
All right.
I think somebody said they may only be able to see me, but I don't know if that's because you were gone.
And maybe that's the case.
Because I was talking, so it was just picking me up. I don't know if this works like normal Hangouts where.
There it goes.
Shows who's talking. See?
There it goes.
Sprained hair follicle. Ouch.
The beverage that Craig got was a KC Pills. KC Beer Pills. Sorry, not to be confused with Boulevard's KC Pills.
Oh, man. How excited are we for episode 2 of the franchise, though?
I know Matt is thoroughly excited. We're going to talk about it later on this week, but Matt is so
chomping at the bit over here,
ready.
And for those that follow, know why.
We'll get there.
For those long-time loyal listeners, you very much know why I'm excited to talk about more of the franchise coming up.
Long-time loyal listeners.
What, you don't think we have those?
Yeah, no, you do. We appreciate all of you, by the way. Cheers.
Cheers. All right.
Okay.
Kind of hang out in the chat for a couple more minutes, let more people flow in, then we'll start it.
And then we'll start up on the podcast.
I mean, tell you, guys here in the chat, got any other questions you want? I mean, fire away any questions you got right now. We'll answer anything we got. We got your beer out there. Shirt buttons, unbuttons. Speaking of shirts, I was very anti short sleeve button up shirts like my entire life as a kid, going through high school, even college. Like, nah, that's just not a move I can do.
This is where we're going.
Yeah, this is where we're going. You get out of college, and I'm a bigger guy, I'm in the 220s right now. I sweat a lot. You feel a short sleeve button up shirt with this extra button undone. This is breezy. This works great. I can now rock the dad button up, no problem. I have no fears out in public anymore of the dad button up. It is the move to do.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. That's been the AP Laboratory podcast. Yeah. The only thing about Slay, just because I saw kind of this same discussion earlier, I am 100% on board, but this is also the franchise that made Barry Sanders retire, that made Calvin Johnson retire. I think that was Nick Jacobs that was talking about that earlier today. They try and make their players honor their contracts, like to a fault sometimes. So we'll see what happens here because, Slay's still got 2 years on the deal. Like, he's still very valuable. That's why we're even talking about him, because he's a really useful, valuable player. So, yeah, that'd be interesting, though. I don't know that the Lions would give up.
So here's the part of that, though. Patricia's definitely coming from the Belichick school of thought.
Sure.
You're going to be willing to just, deal with somebody potentially sitting out, honoring a contract for potential attitude issues, or is he going to be pushing to trade him off? I mean, I don't think you could be able to give him just peanuts to get Darius Slay. He's that good of a player. Even for a year, I think you're going to have to give up at least a first-round pick to get Darius Slay. Like, I think he is that good. So I think no matter what, you're looking at a first. I mean, there's no way the compensation for Darius Slay is going to be less than what you would give up for Patrick Peterson right now.
Ooh. Yeah, you might be right. Right now, Patrick Peterson with the suspension.
Oh, but even without, I think I have Slay like in that he's fighting.
I mean, he's really good. Yeah.
I mean, I guess he's 28, so he's actually Peterson's age. I thought he was a little younger than that. So. I still think you're giving up about the same for either guy, though, is the issue.
Would you give up a 2 for him on his current contract?
2 for sure. That 55ers pick can go right out the door.
Yeah. I mean, and it gets brought up that Slay is the highest paid CB. I mean, but still, that's not going to be the case here in 2 years. I mean, not after Jalen Ramsey gets done. So
Jalen Ramsey's going to take that.
Harris makes his money next year.
Chris Harris next year. Marshawn Lattimore still probably 2 years away, but him and Tre'Davious White.
I'll be curious to see what Marcus Peters gets. See if somebody values him.
He's got to play next year like he did the last quarter of last year, or he is not going to get close to that money. And I bet he's going to want it too.
Yeah.
All right. We do see some more questions coming in, but I think we should probably start. If you guys save your questions till later on, we'll definitely come back and ask for them during the live stream, and that way you guys will get these questions onto the live or onto the podcast and everything, and we'll still answer them and check in with you guys a little bit. But I think it's about time to start recording. Again, those joining us now, Kent is out. He's been Roethlisbergering it up, and by that I just mean eating some throat lozenges, trying not to cough into his mic.
Drinking bourbon, probably.
Hopefully he's on the hot toddy game. That's what I told him. He needs to start getting. He stayed home today, and he needed to just get those hot toddies down. He did not take care of his.
He stayed home.
The pod.
Maybe a little behind the curtain here, but he stayed home with his kid. I don't know that getting day drunk while watching your kid's probably a great idea.
I mean, were they going anywhere?
I don't know.
Is that Easton to my left? No, there is a bassinet over here, but it is currently empty. I would not live pod while he tried to sleep here.
All right. Got your recorder pulled up? Ready?
I'm ready whenever you are.
All right.
Countdown and we're ready.
3, 2, 1. What's up, everybody? My name is Craig Stout. I am the defensive film analyst for Arrowhead Pride. This is the AP Laboratory. You might notice once again, Kent Swanson's not here. He's not leading the charge like he normally does. But with me, as always, is Maddie Lane. The two of us are going to hold it down while Kent is soldiering through an illness right now. He's not able to be on. For your sake, not just ours, but for your sake. Apparently, he's got a really bad cough, and nobody wants to hear that all podcast. But how are we doing today, Maddie?
Oh man, I'm doing good. And since we are Kentless today, we might actually have a short pod. As we all know, Kent has overtaken the throne as the long-winded one here. So I say we just get real clean in and out of these breaks. We get from one topic to the next real snappy, and we just get this thing going. We show Kent that we're professionals when he's not here.
Yeah,
We may be the live stream, guys that enjoy some adult beverages when we do it, but that doesn't mean that we're not professionals.
yeah. Well, all I need to do is probably mention Mecole Hardman and try and get your thoughts on him, and then we've got like a 4-hour podcast.
Listen,
So
how much topic do we need on wide receiver 5?
yeah, see, there we go. You kept it short and sweet. Nice. So we're going to do Q&As today. We are doing a live stream as per usual. Again, around 8:15 on Tuesday nights, we're getting on the Arrowhead Pride YouTube channel, doing a live stream of this podcast. You can find that on the YouTube channel later. You can just listen to the podcast for those of you who don't want to stare at our beautiful faces. I get it. I totally do. I understand that 100% completely. But we are going to take some questions that you had on Twitter. We are going to take some from the live stream, and we're going to get into this. So first one, our guy, Country Boy 567. Who is going to be the player that fans choose to hate this year?
I think it's just going to be carryover from last year, and Anthony Hitchens is going to catch the bulk of the hate on the defense. Not only did people already dislike him because of his contract and because of what was relatively poor play last year, he's going to be put in situations where he's going to be asked to do a lot. And there's going to be ways that he's helped, but he's still going to be a pretty much 3-down linebacker for the Chiefs, and he's going to be asked to cover, to defend the run. He's going to be asked to be a vital part of the defense, and anytime he shows any average or below average play, he's just going to catch a ton of flack because the grass is always going to be greener with the more athletic kind of Dorian O'Daniel, Darren Lee plays. So anytime Anthony Hitchens doesn't make a play, someone's going to chime in about his lack of speed or how a faster guy would make a better play there. And I think it's just going to go simply overlooked how important he is going to be for this defense once we get into the season and everything gets rolling.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to say Bashaud Breeland. I feel like with the cornerback group, the way that it is, that they're putting an awful lot of faith into Bashaud Breeland, much like they put into David Amerson at this time last year, and you saw how that worked out. Like, people were still talking about him mid-season, and they cut him after training camp, after preseason. So I think that Bashaud Breeland has a lot of weight on his shoulders. He's in a contract year. He's supposed to be motivated because he wants to make money. If he does not play well, the Chiefs are going to be in a bad situation at cornerback. They don't really have a ton of depth behind him. They've got some young guys that need some seasoning. Bashaud Breeland needs to play well. If he gets burned early, we're going to be seeing that a lot. We're going to be seeing a lot of complaints out of people. So next, we got Keith McLean, 78. Any possibility that we don't extend Chris Jones? That's a really, really tough question right now. If you would have asked me this 2 months ago, I would have said no chance. They're extending him, 100% extending him. Him missing minicamp, OTAs, not a big deal to me. I don't really care about that at all. They're not mandatory. So, why should you care about him? What I care about is the way that Andy Reid talked about him in his press conference. What I care about is Sammy Watkins trying to get him back in-house. Those comments that those two have made kind of speak more towards there maybe being some discontent with Chris Jones rather than a situation where they're just trying to work out a deal. It sounds to me like with them trying to get him back in-house that maybe a deal's not in place until he shows, that he can show up and fit in this defense well, which he should, no problem, but he's got to get in-house first, and I think that they're waiting for him to get in-house. I'm not sure that he gets a contract before he shows up.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue. I think that as a fan, I absolutely think they should extend him. They should pay him pretty much whatever he's asking for. I think you try to get in a little earlier than you have to. You don't want to wait until he is going to be able to walk out the door or get franchise tagged. So this is the time to do it. But from a team perspective, it makes sense. There's rumblings that have been about Twitter for a while now that maybe Chris Jones kind of did not necessarily his own thing, but he was busy trying to make plays all the time rather than just do the dirty work, just always take on his direct assignment. And with Bob Sutton, I understand that a little bit. He's not the most cutthroat coach. You can get away with a little bit of stuff when Sutton is kind of your leader, the coach that's going to be telling you yes or no. So maybe the Chiefs want to see him. They want to see him in there with this new staff. It's a completely different attitude on the Chiefs team right now. Chris Jones needs to be there. He needs to get used to his new teammates, his new coaches. I get it trying to get more money, but he's going to be coming back to a whole new situation right now. He should want to be there and getting used to with these guys. The chances of him getting more money while being there right now and showing that he's a leader are a lot better than him training and looking great down in Florida or wherever he is. But if he wants to get paid, he needs to get back into camp right now, these OTAs, and just show everybody that he really wants to be there. And even so, the Chiefs might still wait until the midseason, sometime during the year or next year to do it, just because they want to see him be able to play in this new scheme. Maybe Brendan Daly or Steve Spagnuolo wants to see him 100% carry out what their assignment for him is every single play over and over again, rather than maybe seeing a window that maybe Aaron Donald is known for a guy that plays off script. It's what he does. Teams know it, but he's so good that it doesn't matter. And Chris Jones is very close to that caliber. But there might be a coach, and Wade Phillips isn't one, so that's why it works for the Rams with Aaron Donald. But maybe Steve Spagnuolo or Brendan Daly just want someone that's a little bit more under constraint. They want a guy that they can coach on any given play and know what they're going to get. It's just little stuff like that that we don't know about as fans that I think he needs to get into camp and show them he's willing to work on.
I mean, I think we know this from like Jamie Collins kind of going off script in New England. That was one of the reasons why they moved on from him. Brendan Daly definitely subscribes to that theory. You know, I think he would rather work with a group of guys that are malleable, that are willing to execute the scheme like it's called, rather than an elite athlete that's going to go off script. Now, I'm not saying whether or not I agree with that. I think Chris Jones is one of the 5 best players on the defensive side of the ball. He certainly was last year. I think he's primed for an excellent season. I just think that, I could just understand some of the logic behind why they wouldn't want to make a deal right this very moment. Again, like Matt said, I can see him showing up, playing within the scheme, and in October they put $100 and something million on him right then and there on the spot because he's proved that he can do what they want him to do. So, yeah.
And I think that's the best scenario for both teams right there. Is he comes back, he shows he's the same Chris Jones as last year in terms of disruption, but he also proves that he can play. He can be the underman on a stunt that's not going to do anything sexy. He proves that he can sit there and drop his knee and take on a double team if that's what the play's calling for him. I just wonder if little things like that are the questions right now. And the way Brendan Daly worked in New England, that just may simply not be something that he sees from Chris Jones yet. That's why Chris Jones needs to get back there, show them he's willing to do that, and then he's going to get the payday.
Yeah, that's the agreement there. Yeah, Mr. C. David, we got 3 quick hitters. You must choose between this group. Okay, Carlos Hyde or Darrell Williams. I'm going to go with Carlos Hyde just due to pass protection. He's the best pass protector that they have as a running back. I think that's very important for Andy.
Same, Carlos Hyde. I think people forget how dynamic he was just a couple years ago as well. He's never a complete home run hitter, but he was more than capable to be a featured back just a couple years ago. So definitely give me Carlos Hyde still.
And we like Darrell Williams. Like that's a tough one. That's a really tough one. Byron Pringle or Cody Thompson, Matt?
Oh, this one hurts my soul because I gotta slander somebody one way or the other. For right now, give me Byron Pringle because I think he's a better vertical wide receiver, and I think that's what the Chiefs are going to need more to start this year with whatever the Tyreek Hill situation will be. And even going into next year, I think there's going to be a bigger call for somebody like Byron Pringle who can stretch a team vertically more so than Cody Thompson, who I think is a short to intermediate, better route running kind of guy.
Man, yeah, that one's tough. I do think that it's Pringle. The coaching staff wouldn't shut up about him this week. Everybody. I mean, for God's sake, Greg Lewis basically stepped up to the microphone and people said hi to him and he couldn't scream Byron Pringle's name loud enough, like quick enough. It was immediate. So I do think that it's Pringle. That's a tough one, though. I think that they'll try and keep Cody Thompson on the practice squad if he doesn't make the team. He's got to. Oh, he's making the team? Is he going to be mystery IR?
I mean, he's only got to get to wide receiver 5. So,
oh my God. Just backhanded slander there. I see how it is. Ben Neiman or Gary Johnson. This one's the easiest one of the three for me. I'm going Gary Johnson. You can't teach speed.
Right.
His instincts are not great. He needs a lot of work on that. Matt House can hammer that out for him, but you can't teach that speed.
Yeah, no, 100%. Gary Johnson. It's not particularly close to me either. Both guys are a little bit smaller frame guys. Give me the guy that I know can run on special teams and can get sideline to sideline, even if I have to teach him what he's looking for.
All right, next up, we got S.S. Stebbins was throwing $100,000 at Custis as a UDFA, a waste, Maddie.
No, it absolutely wasn't a waste. He's a guy that if they're throwing $100,000 at him, they had other teams that they know were interested. They wanted to get him in camp because they saw something they liked. He came in camp, and he just simply – it doesn't sound like he's been as impressive as some other guys. And quite frankly, $100,000 to an NFL team like this is nothing. They're doing that just to get a guy to come in, try out because they like something they saw. All this means is the next time he's a free agent, whether it's this year or even if he makes a team, but if he doesn't, the next time he's a free agent, he's going to remember a good interaction with the Chiefs. He's more willing to come back here afterwards.
Yeah, and I think that he's got an outside shot. I mean, him, Cody Thompson, there's a couple of guys there that could end up kind of rounding out a practice squad if they don't make the team. He could show up. You know, a lot of these guys, this is still OTAs. A lot of these guys are still learning the playbook. They're still learning how to, developing chemistry with these quarterbacks. You might see situations like Byron Pringle last year where all of a sudden they get to preseason week 4 and they just jump off the screen. I mean, he showed well in training camp, but they talked often about how good he looked in that 4th preseason game and how he was probably making the roster. And then all of a sudden it was an IR for an injury that he recovered from awful quickly and doesn't seem to be showing any signs of, anything there. So we could see a little bit of that. Maybe Custis is that guy. Maybe Thompson's that guy. Irish Chief 1 asks, how many running backs do the Chiefs carry this season?
All right, just going to work through it live. We got Damian Williams, Darwin Thompson. I'm going to put Carlos Hyde in there. I think that are we going to count Sherman in terms of running back? Because that's where he goes in the depth chart when you count, but he's a different position entirely. What you think?
I think throw him in as tight end too.
All right. Then we get James Williams. So there we're sitting at 4 because we're not including Sherman.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's a pretty good start right there. It is. I think that's where I'd end. I'd go with 4 plus Sherman, whatever you want to call him.
So that would mean that Darrell Williams does not make the squad.
Yeah, I have been trying to slip him to the practice squad again, or not even again. He didn't even go there last year, but trying to get him down there. It's a too crowded of a room for a guy whose best skill set is too similar to Carlos Hyde's.
And I think that we need to talk about this a little bit. I see a lot of national media talking about maybe Duke Johnson or adding another running back to this room. Maddie, how would you feel about if the Chiefs tried to go after Duke Johnson with the current running backs as it is? Does it feel redundant?
Yeah, it definitely does because he's very much the same as Darwin Thompson or James Williams. He's not, and a little bit of Damian Williams too. He's not providing you something that you don't have anymore. He's another dynamic kind of space running back that was a better receiver than he is a runner. Now, actually thinking back about it, if I'm not mistaken, Duke Johnson wants to play wide receiver. So if they want to bring him in to add a new wide receiver 5 over McCole Hardman, we could definitely take Duke Johnson in here. But besides that, unless he's up for that position change still, I think there's no need to add him to Darwin Thompson and James Williams.
And that's the thing. Andy Reid running backs have historically produced, and it didn't really matter. I mean, Spencer Ware, Charkandrick West, guys like this produced. Now, they may not have produced as awesome as Kareem Hunt did or LaShawn McCoy did, or, there's lots of guys that definitely had better years, but I would never say that a running back had a quote unquote bad year under Andy Reid. He tends to get the most out of his running backs. Now he's got a bunch of these young guys. They've got a bunch of guys that fit a bunch of different skill sets. We love Damian Williams. We think Damian Williams is a very good running back. I just don't really see the Chiefs really needing to add a running back at this point. They've already got too full of a room, and Duke Johnson would have to be competing with some guys that I think that they'd feel are a little more established in their offense or have traits that they like a little better. We got one more here before we take a break. We're going to do Stefan NFL. Which player are fans more protective of, Armani Watts or Demarcus Robinson? Well,
This is a hot one.
This is a hot one. This has got a little heat on it. I think that people, and maybe it's just because I cover the defense, I think people are a little more protective of Armani Watts. I do think that Armani does have some growth he can do. I do think that he could be a football player going forward, but they drafted over the top of him. He showcased in limited reps. I know they talk him up quite a bit. You know, they say, well, he was really coming on against a backup tight end. He had a sack on a blitz that he wasn't blocked on. I mean, there's some stuff that people point to as being really excellent or good plays, when in truth, he had 2 good plays and the rest of it was pretty meh. And, you know, Bob Sutton's entire defense was pretty meh last year. You want to make the argument that Armani Watts can thrive in a different defense, go right ahead. That's fine, whatever. But people seem to love Armani Watts a little more than they probably should at this point. Tyrann Mathieu and Juan Thornhill and Jordan Lucas are all guys that they chose to spend money and assets on over Armani Watts. So if you're still really clinging to Armani Watts is going to start, Armani Watts is going to be this major player for this defense, unless there's an injury, I just don't see it.
Yeah, and this is an easy one for me too. I think everybody knows that I'm going with Armani Watts here. And it's simply,
that's because you love D-Rob.
To address the D-Rob's part of this here, I don't think fans defend Demarcus Robinson that much. I actually think fans in general don't particularly like him because they remember an interception or two where he did seem to run the wrong route. These were from Alex Smith, for what it's worth, where he ran the wrong route and the ball got picked off. And there's been a couple things and hints at that coming out, and I would agree. He's probably not got the best grasp on the game, mentally speaking, especially going into his 4th year. But for what he is, he's a quality player. He runs fantastic routes. He has good feet, and he's a good athlete. You put him out there on the field, he finds space, he's going to make some plays. Armani Watts, we just simply don't know what he is yet. And like Craig just said, his best plays were running with a 6th offensive tackle and then breaking up a pass on the goal line and then an unblocked sack where, yeah, he did a good job of cutting tight corner close to the rusher, but it was unblocked. Like that was his season highlights. And you go back to the preseason and it was 2 overthrows that just kind of fell into his lap. And there's a skill to be in position to make those plays, but the ball fell into his lap twice. And that's what we're using to talk him up. You can go back to his college tape and just watch him versus Tennessee. He single-handedly had 8 missed tackles on Alvin Kamara. And I get it. Alvin Kamara is great, but you can't have that many missed tackles on one player in a game. And that was just the epitome of what I thought of Armani Watts, was attempting to break down an NFL athlete in space and just completely being unable to do it. And then you want me to believe that he can play single high in the NFL or be an effective box safety at his size and athleticism. I'm just not seeing it. And I believe Chiefs fans are just wildly impressed by him because he has some fantastic highlights and big playmaking ability. So he's considered this starter level player despite not showing any reason to think he's a starting level player. So he's probably like the number 1 Chief on my protected by fans list on anybody on the roster right now.
And he's a very boomer bust player. He's entirely boomer bust. And if you can tell, or if the Chiefs tried to paint it as, well, we believe that he's more of the boom type player once we get good coaching in, once we put him in the right situation, then yeah, that makes sense. And I still think that he makes the roster. I mean, he's got to beat out Dan Sorensen. And Dan Sorensen may be a little better fit, but he's going to make a lot of money. So if they want to save a little bit more money, they can move on from Dan Sorensen. I think that's safety 4 right there. I think that's the position that he's competing for.
And at best, like if you want to split up your safety into your strong and deep safety, let's just call it, your deep safety and kind of more of your box safety. He's at least safety 3, if not 4 at both positions, because I think you're going to put Tyrann Mathieu definitely ahead of him at either position.
Mm-hmm.
You'd probably put Juan Thornhill ahead of him at either position. And in the box, I'm not wild about Daniel Sorensen in the box, but I think he's better than Armani Watts, just given the fact that I've seen him make significantly more tackles and look more athletic in space. And if you're playing him deep, why would I trust Armani Watts over Jordan Lucas at this point in time playing deep? So I have him as safety 4 at either spot you want to put him at, with 4 other safeties on the roster already better than him at a specific role. I'm just not sure where the hype for him comes from right now, whether you want to focus on his college tape or his little bit of time in the NFL.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. We will be right back after this break, and we'll catch you on the flip side. I just say catch you on the flip side, man.
You should have said flippity flip.
Flippity flip.
The can't flippity flip. Man, that was a hot question coming out of the end.
That was. I did see the question go by. John Ames, if Velcro was invented before zippers, would zippers be a thing still? Yes. It's a hard hitting one.
Velcro's very loud.
It's true.
Like, I can't imagine being in you're in a quiet urinal, like at, your place of work, and you walk up to it and you're just like, whoosh, go to the bathroom every time. I don't know. That's bold.
That is bold. Maybe, you get to announce your presence a little more with Velcro.
That is true. You say, hey, I'm here, guys.
Yeah. Let's see if we got any more questions here while we're in the break, while we're waiting for some of this to go around here. How's everybody doing? How's it sounding?
Hot take, Ben Niemann will become the best linebacker on the Chiefs by the season's end.
Whoa, that's Emmanuel Rivera. That one.
That's a hot one.
That is a hot one.
It is a hot
I don't know that Ben Niemann's making this roster.
Right.
So that's
I would be
one.
more willing to bet that he doesn't make the roster or become the best linebacker on the team.
Mm-hmm.
If those are my two options, I would take not making the roster.
Yeah. Do either of you have a rooting interest in the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Final?
Team Klay Thompson, Warriors' best player. Come at me on Twitter again, just like after the game. All you Kevin Durant, Steph Curry fans. Nope, Klay Thompson's their best player. He's not a coward.
See, and I'm Raptors because I would like to see somebody else win it. And also Fred VanVleet. I'm from Wichita. Fred VanVleet is their backup point guard.
I mean, he had himself a game.
He did. He did have himself a game. What beer am I drinking tonight? For those who came in late, Casey Beer Pills. Good stuff. Go get it. Let's see here.
Klay doesn't play. They lose game 3, 100%.
That's true. That's true. Let's see.
Few more coming
Got
in.
more? Got
Yeah,
more?
you see Breland Speaks playing IDL. I see Breland Speaks playing IDL in my dreams, and he haunts them. He's playing IDL and eating donuts.
Hey, that's better than playing outside linebacker, though. I mean, Bob did, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got a Josh Norman question coming up. I've seen a couple of those come through. We're not ignoring those. So.
Oh, here's a good one from John Ames. My favorite thing about Armani Watts is his name is not Eric Berry.
Whew. John with some heat.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
I wish I would have had that line when we were recording. People are already mad enough at me.
That's true. That's true. You could just continue to piss them off, though.
Oh, just wait till the Warriors win again on the back of another Klay Thompson performance. Get KD Twitter coming at me hard.
They were coming after you a little bit.
They were about Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, as if like people didn't realize that it was like a half troll job, but at the same time, Klay Thompson's not quitting on his team that has Russell Westbrook, so he can go win to it by somebody else.
Whew. Yikes. When does Eric Berry get signed? Preseason week 2.
Yeah.
I think that at this point, I mean, we've kind of seen that Eric Berry isn't a fan of training camp. Nobody is. I mean, it's not like that's a big deal for anybody. But I think that if he was going to have a very prominent role on a team, he'd already be on a roster. He'd be in OTAs. He'd be working through some stuff. I think at this point, he'll catch a 1-year deal a little later on down the line, maybe preseason week 2 or something like that. So.
All right, another Josh Norman question. We'll get to that for our Norman question. All right, I think we're about time to start it up. Get the second part done here.
Yep.
All right, guys, be thinking of all your questions you want to ask. Here in a couple more minutes, if you have any more questions, we'll ask for them, throw them in the chat, and then we'll read them live while we're still recording the podcast and answer them on the go. So any more fun questions, try to hang on to them for a couple minutes. We'll get back to them.
Yeah. Eric Berry will have a job when Craig has hair. Uh-oh. That's a problem.
I've seen a picture of Craig with hair.
Yeah.
It's elusive.
Yeah, it is. It was on the franchise, week 1. Go tune in. Watch it. I had hair. All right. Here we go. You ready?
Yeah, whenever you are.
All right. 3, 2, 1. All right, next up, we have Steve Gray Jr. After cornerback, how do you rank the following position groups according to your level of concern? Linebacker, tight end, and wide receiver based solely on what we currently know about Tyreek Hill.
So wide receiver to start, right after the draft, wide receiver probably would have been number 1 for me. But the more information or the lack of information coming out since then, I think Tyreek Hill plays at least half the season, if not more, which already pushes it down out of that number 1 spot. Mm-hmm. So linebacker's number 1, and that's just because I want to see these guys go out there and improve on what they did last year. I think they will. I think the scheme's going to be a better fit for Ragland, for Hitchens. I like the addition of Darren Lee. I think Damian Wilson's going to be able to do some stuff as the Sam linebacker. So I like the guys and the skills they have for their positions. I just want to see them do it. Wide receiver remains number 2 just because Sammy's health is always going to be a concern until it's not, which is going to be never. And then you might be without Tyreek Hill for a little bit. So that concerns me. Byron Pringle is going to be your wide receiver 3 or 4 with D-Rob. So, I mean, it's not a terrible group, but it's also not bad. And then finally, tight end, just because I don't think the Chiefs plan on using multiple tight ends a ton. And if Travis Kelce goes down, no matter who our backup tight end was, we were already going to be in trouble. So there's no reason to be too worried about that.
Well, I see. I'm going to flip that. I'm going to put tight end at number 1. Travis Kelce's not practicing yet. Travis Kelce's not out there. He's still recovering from injury. Now, don't get me wrong.
I saw him dance. We're good.
Oh, that's true. We did see him dance while he was eating chicken fingers, didn't we?
Yeah, he's good to go.
Yeah, that's a very convincing argument.
And they go up the stairs to get into that press box, that Blues game too.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's Alex Smith level hurt or anything like that, but you know, he hadn't been on the field yet, and he's getting a little bit older. He's always come back from this sort of stuff. I believe that he will come back, but honestly, there's concern. Seriously, there's some concern there. Who is tight end 2? Nobody knows who tight end 2 is right now. And, well, other than Anthony Sherman. But, I mean, actually, I'm kind of on board. Does Anthony Sherman catch for 500 yards if he's the primary tight end all year long? Does he have 500 yards receiving?
No, he does not.
See, that's a concern then. That's a concern for me. So I would put that first. Then I would put wide receiver. Again, Tyreek Hill missing half the year. Sammy Watkins' health is also concerning. Linebacker before Darren Lee would have been probably contending for tight end, but for the same reasons, you know, that after they added Darren Lee, that made me feel a lot better about the will linebacker position. I thought Dorian O'Daniel was perfectly capable of doing it, but they didn't have anybody behind him. Now you've got Dorian O'Daniel as your depth piece in that situation. So I think the linebacker group is going to be put in better positions to succeed, and they've got a little better skill set to fit what Steve Spagnuolo wants. So I think we're going to see a little better linebacker core.
Quick addition. I think Sherman plus Deion Yelder would combine to top 500 yards, though, as a combo tight end 1-2 if they were to play all year. I think Yelder's got enough athleticism to stretch the field vertically, and that's where I have hesitations about Sherman at tight end, is running the seam.
What percentage of his snaps would he line up as an H-back?
Is he tight end 2 or 1?
1 in that situation.
Often, but you still have to see the issue with the Chiefs offense right now is Travis Kelce spends a ton of time in the slot, in the actual slot. So you would have to completely rework some of your offensive design if Sherman's going to get a ton of snaps. So I don't think he would ever work as a tight end 1, but as a tight end 2 where he can take 100% of his snaps as an H-back.
Right.
He's fine.
Right.
That's why I said give me Yelder plus Sherman. And it's not a good tight end group if that's all you have, but I think you could make do if you had a healthy Sammy and once you got Tyreek Hill back.
Laney Kid 1, what is your over-under projection for Pringle receiving yards this year?
Over. Whatever the number is, it's over.
He put the line at 500 yards, Maddie. 500 yards. No, under. DeMarcus Robinson had 288 last year.
It's over.
DeMarcus Robinson had 288 last year. No, Byron Pringle ain't touching 500 yards. We got to walk back some of this Byron Pringle love just a little bit. Listen, we like Byron Pringle a lot, and they like Byron Pringle a lot. But let's not pretend like all of a sudden he's going to be a really, really excellent wide receiver. I mean, he's probably wide receiver 3. If DeMarcus Robinson in this offense, with getting a lot of wide receiver 2 looks with, various injuries and things like that, only put up 288 yards last year with Patrick Mahomes throwing for over 5,000, Byron Pringle ain't hitting 500 this year.
No, 500's a lot. The one reason that I would say he might even get close, and I would even say maybe even a little bit more than DeMarcus, is just because he's a vertical threat. Like his ability to run deep, to run vertical routes is excellent. So even if he does have limited catches, the chances of a lot of them being vertical plays, I feel like is kind of high. But no, 500's definitely absurd. I think as of right now, if he's getting 250, 300, and you convert a couple of those into, 40-yard plus touchdowns.
Oh, that's awesome.
Super excited about what you got. Just, I could see a path for 500 not to be 100% out of the question because, like I said, he is such a vertical threat. And it's not just speed, it's just how good he is at running vertical routes.
Oh, and I agree with that. In that regard, yes, I would agree with that. Most of DeMarcus Robinson's catches come on scramble plays, So it's maybe, but I still think that's a little hot. I think we got to temper our expectations just a little bit here. I realize that we just got done with 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards, and it's really easy to have crazy optimism about the wide receiver core, but let's pump the brakes a little bit and not try and put too much on the kid right now. Jayhawk 1108. Last year's team was top heavy on pass rush. This year's team has significantly more depth in Jayhawk's opinion. Can you discuss the contrast between the two and the importance of depth for defense? Well, the way that Spagnuolo likes to rotate players, depth is more important, I think, for him than top-end talent. Same with Brendan Daly. We talked about it a little bit earlier regarding Chris Jones. They want guys that are going to do their job and maybe don't have some of the top-end talent that are going to execute the scheme like they like. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to take the top-end talent. They want those guys that can do that job. But I do agree that the depth on this defense is significantly better than it was with Bob Sutton. I mean, we look at the safety position. They had to pick up Ron Parker to start for most of the year due to injury. If they had, God forbid, Honey Badger goes down due to injury, they've got a couple other options that they can lean on a little more that maybe are a little better player than Ron Parker. Same with linebacker, same at defensive line. Cornerback is thin. But the rest of those positions are, I think, in pretty good shape. And the importance of that, with all the rotation that they do, I think that that's significant.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if the original question was trying to emphasize just the pass rush here, so I'm going to kind of focus there a little bit.
Okay.
I think last year's team was actually pretty deep in terms of pass rushers. I mean, you had D Ford, who is obviously a stud. Chris Jones was probably even better. Justin Houston was a fantastic number 3 pass rusher. And then Alan Bailey still had, 4 or 5 sacks last year. You got a little bit of pressure out of Xavier Williams. Like, there was a good amount of people along that defensive line capable of getting some pressure. So I'm not so sure if you can get a lot more guys along the defensive line able to get pressure, but what you can do is get more blitzes. You can have more pressure coming from more places on the field, which I think will be a little bit more balanced. And the amount of players able to get that pressure for you is going to be better under Steve Spagnuolo. So that'll really help when against a team like New England, who can't just sit back and prepare for these 1 or 2 top-end rushers and then expect those or bait the role players into trying to beat them. Now you have to worry about rushes or blitzes, stunts, pressure coming from weird spots, just little stuff like that. But as far as just pure depth goes, I think last year's pass rush was pretty good from the top to the bottom. That was a lot of guys getting a lot of pressure last year.
It was. It really was. JJP J86 says the offense was great last year, so this unit doesn't get a ton of scrutiny. And in the AFC Championship game, no one gets past the Ford and the defense in the blame list. Patrick is a wizard when plays break down, but the offensive line needs to be better. Can this offensive line improve? And who is the best left guard that they currently have?
Okay, so the last 2 questions kind of go together. The offensive line can improve if the best left guard plays, who is Andrew Wiley, and LDT stays healthy at right guard. So if you get that, I think the offensive line will be better. My issue with the overall point, though, is I'm not sure the offensive line needs to be or should be much better. They're definitely a top 10 pass blocking unit for an offensive line, and that was even with injuries to both guard spots and the center most of the year. It was a pretty darn good offensive line in terms of pass blocking, which is much more important to the game of football right now, especially for the Chiefs. So, yeah, there's a little bit of room for improvement in some of the run blocking, but as far as just overall performance goes, I'm not sure you can ask for a whole lot more for the amount of resources the Chiefs have been putting into the offensive line. I think they've been performing excellent for what the Chiefs have been putting in lately.
And, I mean, they paid 3 guys. They significantly paid 3 guys. Obviously, Austin Ryder got a second contract. Cam Irving got another contract, but the 3 guys that they've really paid, Mitchell Schwartz, Eric Fisher, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, those 3 guys, I think if you got them on the field and Andrew Wiley at left guard, which is where he was lining up in training camp prior to LDT's injury, I think that group of 4 is pretty darn good. Like, I'm okay with all of those guys. Austin Ryder's a little bit of a question mark, but they can kind of hide him a little bit. They can kind of give him a little help with those 2 guards. I think that the offensive line, while it could improve and they could invest a lot of extra assets into it, I'm pretty okay with it. And I'm pretty okay with the depth on it too. So, Tremendous79 asks, favorite Chiefs memories? Oh, man. This was a tough one for me, because as these guys will let you know a lot, I'm older than them by a small amount. Just a little bit. You have a lot of
memories to choose from.
Yeah. So I have a few.
How was the first Super Bowl?
I mean,
did that make the top 5?
Listen, the first Super Bowl or Super Bowl 4?
No, the first one. Like, you were like 10 then. You should remember most of it.
I mean, yeah. I don't have anything for that. Okay. I think I got to see Derek Thomas play, and in person in the stadium, he was just an electrifying player to watch. Like, you couldn't take your eyes off of him at any point. He was just very clearly the best player on the field at all time. Every time he was on there, and you couldn't look away from him. Like, everybody going nuts over Mahomes would have been going just as nuts over Derek Thomas back in the day. For those of you who didn't get an opportunity to watch him, who just heard stories, it's that level of focus that he requires. You just can't not watch him. You're just so dialed into him because he was such a great player. So I got to watch him play in person once. And that's probably one of my favorite Chiefs memories, is getting to see him in person.
No, that's a great one. My one's kind of like a combo of two games. It was that terrible Oakland team that ran all over the Chiefs defense that hadn't allowed a rushing touchdown, and kind of Eric Berry's last game before finding out he had cancer. And then pair that with that first game back when he was healthy. He played against Oakland and he picked up and dropped Latavius Murray right on his back, and just all the different GIFs and highlights of just comparing Latavius Murray running 70 yards somehow. I don't know how that man ever ran 70 yards versus Eric Berry dropping him on his back, just back to back. Just the combination of those two games was fantastic. Loved Eric Berry. I still do, even as frustrating as last year was. Just his story of going through that and overcoming it, and just kind of getting that back-to-back kind of play from him in those two games versus essentially the same team was pretty great for me.
Yeah. And just because I'm thinking about it, and just to prove again how old I am, the only player more really electrifying, I think, because Patrick Mahomes is
Otis Taylor.
No, not Otis Taylor, although Otis Taylor was good. The only player more electrifying, and I'm not throwing Pat Mahomes into this yet, he certainly has that potential to just be that, was Bo Jackson. I got to watch Bo Jackson play as well. And my goodness, that 30 for 30 about Bo Jackson encapsulates everything that it was to watch Bo Jackson, just go out. Everything was effortless. And again, it reminds you of Patrick Mahomes. Eric Bieniemy talked about how when they see him do this type of stuff, he did the left-handed pass, and then he came to the sidelines, and they spit the play out. Andy gave him the play. He gave it to Pat on the field, and then he turned and he stopped for a second. And he turned to Andy and he went, "Did he just throw that left-handed?" Just coming out of nowhere. You just get you get used to it. You get used to the magical things happening, and they start accumulating in such a way that you miss some of the truly magical things. They just become commonplace for you. And I mean, it's kind of awesome that we got another one of those.
30 for 30s, top 5 30 for 30s. The U, number 5. The hating of Christian Laettner, number 4. Bo Jackson was 3. Number 2 was Randy Moss, and number 1 was definitely Run, Ricky, Run.
Oh my God, that's a really good list, especially off the top of your head.
I really wanted to put the Pistons on there, and they probably belong, but that's a strong top 5 for me.
Man, that's a really strong top 5. I'd have to look at a list. I really would have to look at a list, because I might fully agree with it. I might move Bo up to number 1 just because. But
it was a great one. I just think some of the others had a little bit better production for him. And just getting to see Randy Moss college highlights.
Well, I'm going to throw my soccer. 2 Escobars was excellent as well.
Okay.
But
that's a good one. I didn't understand most of it, but it was a good one. They kick stuff? What?
Yeah. So here we go. If you are in the live stream, go ahead and submit some questions. We're going to answer a question, then we're going to come to you guys. So go ahead and submit those right now, and we'll get to you. Aerodontus asks, if Josh Norman gets cut, does he make sense for the Chiefs? I could not put a bigger yes on that. If he gets cut, I wouldn't trade for Josh Norman. I don't think that his contract is worth trading for. He's making an awful lot of money. I don't think that he's playing to that level. I would bring Josh Norman in a heartbeat, reunite him with Kendall Fuller and Bashaud Breeland in a zone-heavy scheme. That's where he's featured best in. He's a good zone corner. So put him in those spots. Ask him to play kind of with his eyes in the backfield, be a little more opportunistic. That's going to be where Josh Norman can really be a good player, pay dividends, and put him on. I know what Matt's going to say on this, so I'm going to say it, but I'd put him on a 1-year deal and keep him hungry. But I know Matt has a few different thoughts on that.
Yeah, I love the idea of adding Josh Norman if he becomes available. I think that he fits perfectly. I think he will fit in really well with the scheme. He's played a lot of kind of match zone coverage over his NFL career. He fits the mold. I think that he would be able to pick it up relatively quickly. He knows some guys on the defense in the defensive backfield. So I think he'd be good there. I'm not a huge fan of 1-year deals when it's a vet player. Get him for a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal that you can get out of after that second year, just because I don't see the point in paying a guy for 1 year just to have to fix it again the very next year when it's something you need as badly as cornerback right now. So I understand that Norman has plenty of say in this, but if I could sign him for a 3-year deal, backloading it with a ton of money in that third year, then I'll pay him a good amount. I'll still pay him plenty for year 1 and 2 because we need him. But I would put more money on it's like similar to the Sammy Watkins deal. That's essentially a 2-year deal with the option to pay him a ton of money in year 3. Give Josh Norman a similar deal, just less money, clearly, and put him out there. Let's get him for at least 2 years so that he can help us really rebuild the cornerback position rather than just be a Band-Aid.
And see, I'd be fine with that. I can make that work. Like, I'm not opposed to bringing him in for a little bit longer term deal. I just wouldn't want him to get complacent. He seemed to get a little bit complacent in Washington with his pay, maybe some of that scheme. I know that they tried to play a little bit more man heavy when he first got there, and they slowly transitioned back to zone where he could be a little bit better player, but he would clearly be the best cornerback that they could bring in on the roster, at this point in the year if he was cut. Okay, taking some of these questions from the live stream. Andrew M. says, you can bring back one of the 3 recent retirees to come back and play for Kansas City this season in prime form. Do you take Jamal Charles, Derek Johnson, or Dwayne Bowe? Consider hypothetically Tyreek isn't playing in 2018.
I don't think Bowe really fixes anything about the Tyreek Hill situation. I like him. Just he would be more like Travis Kelce replacement to me than he would Tyreek Hill. So give me Derek Johnson playing the will and the 4-3, slides over to Mike in the nickel. Prime Derek Johnson would elevate this defense to such another level that I can't even talk about it too much, or we will be going 50 minutes extra.
Yeah, no. Prime Derek Johnson is an absolute game changer for this defense. He fixes so many things, and he gives them the will that we'd be asking Anthony Hitchens to be. Like he would change so much. So that would be it for me. We've got another question here. I know it's way too early, but who are a couple linebackers in next year's draft that you would like the Chiefs to go after? I don't know how much you've looked at some of these guys, Maddie. Have you at all?
I got a couple, so you can go first, and that way, if I don't want to take anybody, you would have.
I mean, the guys that I know are like Mohamed Sanadagu out of Ole Miss. Let's see, David Reese out of Florida. I'm aware of some of these guys from watching some other guys. But I don't have a ton for inside linebackers. No.
All right. So Dylan Moses, Alabama. You cannot watch Mac Wilson without seeing Dylan Moses, the far superior linebacker on that team. He was he was recruited at like the age of 13 or something like that by Alabama. That just lets you know how physically talented he is. I also love Isaiah Simmons, the athletic upside of Isaiah Simmons, who plays a very similar role to Dorian O'Daniel did at Clemson. He's at Clemson now. He ran step for step with Travis Etienne, who's a running back that's expected to probably run in the 4-3s. So he's a kind of safety linebacker hybrid player, but he's big enough to play linebacker. And then kind of a little bit of a sleeper for me, I like Troy Dye out of Oregon. He's not going to be the most athletic, but he's understands the game. And I think there's a little something special there just mentally that he's going to be a good player in the NFL, even if not the flashiest draft pick.
Yeah, no, actually, I got to watch a little bit of Troy Dye because there were some questions about whether or not he was coming out this past offseason. So I did watch a little bit of him there at Oregon. I forgot about that. That's a really good one. But obviously the correct answer is you'd move Delpit to linebacker and he'd be the best one in the class. Right, Maddie?
I mean, Dylan Moses is really good, but Delpit can probably do anything you ask of him, yes.
All right. Thank you for your questions on the live stream. We're going to hit this last one and get out of here. Straight out of EMAW. For the X receivers, what are the distinctions or different roles that they would play, Maddie?
So are we talking like X receiver here as in like your possession receiver, like just the guy on the line of scrimmage, or are we talking guys that kind of fit the general profile? I'm just going to take it kind of as just like the X receiver, the position in general. Okay. So your X receiver is kind of, he's your bigger wide receiver. He's your possession guy. So he plays on the line of scrimmage. He's going to see a lot more press coverage than any other wide receiver. He's your guy that's going to run more short, intermediate routes. Usually gets the best cornerback, but as the game's kind of evolved a little bit, your best cornerback is a lot of times in the slot or will play on a faster kind of Z flanker wide receiver that's more of your deep threat. But neither here nor there, your X receiver is Dwayne Bowe. He's a guy that doesn't usually get as much separation, but he's going to make more contested catches. He's going to be a little bit more physical, be able to run over the middle of the field, whereas other receivers like a Byron Pringle or a Tyreek Hill are Z receivers or slot receivers. They're going to be your vertical threats that operate better in space. So right now, your X wide receiver is Sammy Watkins, and I'm not sure. I don't know who the backup X wide receiver is. Last year, it was Chris Conley, but they lost him. So I think DeMarcus Robinson, maybe Cody Thompson are your next in line there just because they're the next kind of biggest guys. But they don't have a great traditional X wide receiver on the roster. And maybe that's just a kind of showing where the NFL's going this day and age.
Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, we kind of mentioned a little bit last week that they tend to, or that recently NFL teams have gone to lighter, faster, better route runner sort of guys in that situation. So yeah, that position may just be fading away a little bit. Obviously, Julio Jones, AJ Green, those guys are elite, wide receivers, and you just can't stop them. But yeah, it seems DeAndre Hopkins, that's another great one. Yeah, that might be a spot where Cody Thompson actually makes a little more sense because he can fit in that role a little better than maybe anybody else could that's currently on the roster. We got, all these fast guys that are vertical threats. They may need somebody that can kind of back up Sammy and be an underneath receiver, especially with his injury history. So
go draft T. Higgins.
Go draft T. Higgins. Yeah, there you go. Thank you all for listening. If you liked this, please go give us 5-star reviews. They like it when we say that. They like it when you give them. You guys have been doing it, and it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for doing that. Thanks for hanging out with us today on the podcast, and we will catch you next time.
Yeah, and if you guys are listening late, make sure to tune in if you get a chance to. Tuesday nights, about 8:15 Central Time. We're live on YouTube on the Arrowhead Pride channel here. Jump in, hang out with us. We'll talk you guys on and off the recording of the podcast. So come hang out. It's a fun time. You get to see Kent's hair usually when he's not playing hooky on us. So take it easy.
He's playing hooky. Kent Swanson. Right after we finished, this was Cheeks. Well, we had to lead last minute. Had to sub in. It was my Frank Van Vliet game.
Fred Van Vliet.
A lot of discussion about Norman's age and falling off after that. It's concerned, but I mean, the rest of the cornerbacks on the Chiefs roster are not anything really to write home about. Yeah.
What are you going to do? I fully get it. You don't want another old corner like Darrell Revis or Orlando Scandrick, but I mean, what are you going to do when your options are hope Charvarius Ward is the same as he was for like the one game last year that he was really good, and hope you get the best out of Ashad Breeland and hope you get the best out of Kendall Fuller, none of which happened last year? Yeah. It's a lot of ifs. You just go ahead and bring in as many guys as you can.
Yeah, I'd rather hit it with volume, with potential talent, rather than try and develop Rashad Fenton to be the guy. Mm-hmm. Also, not to pile on some more Rashad Fenton slander, but I am. Does anybody notice that all of the catches that everybody's kind of leaping over guys in the end zone and making all these contested catches, it's almost always Fenton? Now, Fenton's had a couple that he's picked off and he's had the ball in his hands and everything like that, but a lot of them are Rashad Fenton with his back to the ball. That's not a situation. I mean, that showed up on tape. I said that in my review of him. That's not great. So
we also noticed that how all Mecole Hardman videos are him versus the air or one catch over Rashad Fenton.
Just couldn't get out. Couldn't get out without another departing shot on him. Did we even have one on the podcast? Yeah, we did have one on the podcast. Well, so it is. So
people have to follow the on podcast joke because he starts as wide receiver 5, and then I slayed in like 4 more players as wide receiver 5.
Yeah.
I just don't know if anyone's going to catch it.
He's like wide receiver 9 now, if you're listening to the podcast.
He started at wide receiver 5, and now he's like wide receiver 8 or 9.
Just can't. He just can't. I am so here for Matt Lane eating his words, Mecole Hardman being a great receiver. Just because Matt Lane will have to eat his words. That's it.
It's going to be so hard because, like, I'm already waiting for Breland Speaks and Armani Watts to make me do that. So, like, what's adding another guy to the list at this point in time?
Man, imagine Breland Speaks, 5 sacks this year. Armani Watts, 4 picks. Mecole Hardman.
If they all hit, what am I going to do? I'm just going to have to quit. Just have to retire to Alaska and hang out with Dexter.
Well, then when Kent has a bad hair day, I have to do this by myself, and nobody wants that.
Oh, I would watch, even in Alaska.
Well, Dakota Thomas, Speaks will eat your words.
And me.
That's a pretty good one. We are going to shut this one down. We're going to shut the live stream down. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, guys. This is fun for us, as always. We hope it's entertaining for you guys. We had a lot more on because we were on the AP account. So please keep coming back. Please keep hanging out. Looks like we had some good conversation in the chat.
Bring your friends.
What's that?
Bring your friends.
Bring your friends. Yeah. No, it's a good little hangout here, and we'll interact with you on the podcast even more. So please do that. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the flippity flip.